Let's review each domain in detail so that you can get to know what AWS is looking for from the exam standpoint. You can skip this section if you are new to AWS and haven't got a chance to start your preparation. After your first round of study, you can come back here and watch this section. Domain 1, Design Resilient Architecture, covering 34% of exam questions. Let's see the definition of resiliency first. Resiliency is the ability of an infrastructure to recover from certain type of failure and yet remain functional from the customer perspective. Resiliency can also called as recoverability. In other way, the failure of one component should not cause the failure of other. When one component like an EC2 instance is temporarily unavailable, the rest of the infrastructure should still support the application availability. The first objective here is selecting a reliable or resilient storage. Primary focus of this objective is a storage service like S3, EBS, CloudFront, DynamoDB and RDS. So focus on these services. Apart from traditional storage services, you should focus on EFS. Amazon EFS is designed to meet the needs of multi-threaded applications and applications that concurrently access data from multiple EC2 instances. It provides highly durable network file system. The second objective here is to design decoupling mechanism using AWS services. Application complexity increases. A desirable attribute of an IT system is that it can be broken into smaller, loosely coupled components. To decouple your application, focus on services like SQS and SNS. You can employ decoupling using multiple approaches. One approach that can reduce the operational complexity of running application is to use serverless architecture. You can upload your code into AWS Lambda compute service and the service can run the code on your behalf using AWS infrastructure. By using Amazon API Gateway, you can develop scalable API powered by Lambda. When combined with Amazon S3 for serving the static content assets, this pattern can deliver a complete web application. At last, microservice architecture make it easier to implement failure isolation. AWS provides multiple services to support microservice architecture, including ECS and API Gateway. Please focus on these services for the exam. The third objective under this domain is to design a multi-tier architectural solution. There are so many AWS services that can support multi-tier architectural solutions, but focus on the mentioned services for the exam. Load balancing with Elastic Load Balancer or Application Load Balancer allows you to spread load across multiple availability zones. You can use Amazon EC2 Autoscaling Group for redundancy and decoupling of services. Caching with Amazon Elastic Cache provides caching services with Redis or Memcache to remove load from application and database and lower latency for frequent requests. Managed database with RDS creates highly available multi-AZ database architecture. DNS services with Amazon Route 53 provides DNS service to simplify domain management. Edge caching with Amazon CloudFront caches high volume content to decrease the latency to the customers. At last, static storage and backup with Amazon S3, which enables simple HTTP based object storage for backups and static assets like images and videos. The last objective under this domain is to design highly available fault-tolerant architecture. A system is highly available when it can withstand the failure of an individual or multiple components. For example, hard disk, servers, network links, etc. You should automate the recovery and reduce the disruption at every layer of your architecture. The most used fault tolerance features in AWS world is region. AWS services internally use multiple availability zones configuration to achieve high availability design goals. Each availability zone is engineered to be isolated from failure in other availability zones. Another important component for high availability is using the load balancer with autoscale. For example, a fleet of application servers can be distributed across multiple availability zones and can be attached to the Elastic Load Balancer service. Elastic IP addresses can be used as a workaround for a host or availability zone failures by quickly remapping the address to another running instance. In order to build fault tolerance applications on EC2, it is important to follow the best practices such as infrastructure as code, using Amazon EBS for persistent storage, and taking advantage of multiple availability zones and elastic IP addresses. Also, Route 53 is a highly available, scalable DNS web service. Same as ELB, if we have multiple resources that perform the same function, you can configure DNS failover so that Route 53 will route your traffic from unhealthy resource to a healthy resource. CloudWatch alarms play a major role in high availability design solution. You can create a CloudWatch alarms that sends an SNS message when a particular metric goes beyond a specific threshold. Those SNS messages can execute a AWS Lambda function or trigger an auto-scaling action. For production, you should use RDS multi-AZ deployment, which creates synchronous replicated standby instance in a different availability zone. The DynamoDB service synchronously replicates the data across 3 facilities in AWS region to provide fault tolerance in the event of server failure or availability zone failures. Amazon SQS, Amazon S3, and Amazon DynamoDB are high-level building blocks that can incorporate your applications for high availability. These services are excellent source of how to achieve fault tolerance for your applications. This concludes the domain of designing a resilient architecture. I know we covered a handful of AWS services under this domain. As I mentioned before, it covers 34% of exam scope. I know this is too much of information to remember. To make your life easier, I developed a study guide which highlights all sections of the exam and related services and concepts you should focus on. You can get a free copy of my study guide by subscribing our newsletter at signup.awspro.academy. Again, it is signup.awspro.academy. Let's explore the domain 2, define performant architecture, covering 24% of exam questions. This domain is very subjective when solutioning AWS. The word performant implies speed, accuracy, flexibility, and capability. Also, it implies whether or not my IT system is right for my needs. The first objective under this domain is to choose performant storage and databases. The optimal storage solutions for a particular system will vary based on the kind of access methods, pattern of access, throughput required, frequency of access, frequency of update, and availability and durability constraints. Well-architected systems use multiple storage solutions and enable different features to improve the performance. When we select a storage solution, ensuring that it aligns with your access pattern will be the critical to achieve the performance you want. The optimal database solution for a particular system can vary based on requirements for availability, consistency, partition tolerance, latency, durability, scalability, and query capabilities. Next, selecting the wrong database solution and features for a system can lead to a lower performance efficiency. Amazon RDS provides fully managed relational database. With Amazon RDS, you can scale your databases, compute and storage resources, often with no downtime. Amazon DynamoDB is a fully managed NoSQL database that provides single-digit millisecond latency at any scale. Amazon Redshift is a managed petabyte scale data warehouse that allows you to change the number or type of nodes as your performance or capacity need changes. So focus on the services under this objective. The second objective under this domain is to use caching to improve performance. The effective caching strategy, perhaps the single biggest factor in creating an app that performs well at scale. The in-memory caching provided by Amazon Elastic Cache improves application performance by storing critical pieces of the data in memory for fast access. You can use this caching to significantly improve latency and throughput of many read-heavy application workloads. The next caching service you should focus on, Amazon CloudFront. CloudFront can be used to deliver your entire website, including dynamic, static, streaming, and interactive content using a global network of edge locations. In addition, focus on Amazon DynamoDB Accelerator, DAX, and Route 53 from the caching standpoint. The third objective under this domain is to design solution for elasticity and scalability. The best tool for this objective is autoscaling, which you can use to optimize the performance by automatically increasing the number of EC2 instances during demand spikes and decreasing the capacity during breaks to reduce the cost. Beyond autoscaling for EC2, you can use application autoscale to automatically scale resources for other AWS services, including Amazon Elastic Container Service or ECS, EC2 Spot instances, Amazon EMR clusters, and DynamoDB. So focus on these services, especially their scaling capabilities. This concludes the domain of defining performant architecture. This domain covers 24% of exam scope. Let's explore the domain 3, specify secure applications and architecture, covering 26% of exam questions. There are three main objectives in this domain. Determine how to secure application tiers, determine how to secure data, define the network infrastructure for a single VPC application. I'm combining all these three objectives and provide consolidated view on this domain. Let's start with IAM. The key AWS service that supports the protection of credential is IAM. Also, we should focus on STS, which lets you request temporary limited privilege credentials for authentication. IAM instance profiles for EC2 instances allow you to leverage the EC2 metadata service for accessing other AWS APIs. It is always important to use detective controls to identify potential threats and incidents. The key AWS service that supports capturing key activities is CloudTrail, which provides rich details about API calls made in your AWS account. AWS Config provides detailed inventory of your AWS resources and configuration, and CloudWatch is a monitoring service for AWS resources. The key AWS service that supports the protection of network and host level boundaries is Amazon VPC. This service gives you the ability to create your private virtual network on AWS. Amazon VPC security groups and NACLs provide firewall on instance and subnet levels. AWS Direct Connect allows you to establish your own direct connectivity from your data center to your VPC. The key AWS service that supports service level protection is IAM. Also, you should focus on AWS KMS or Key Management Service that allows you to set policies on the individual key. As we all know, Amazon S3 allows you to set bucket policies for each S3 bucket. Let's look into data protection part now. In AWS, there are a number of different approaches to consider when addressing the data protection. Data classification provides a way to categorize organizational data based on level of sensitivity. By using resource tags, IAM policies, AWS KMS, and AWS Cloud HSM, you can define and implement your policies for data classification. Encryption and tokenization are two important but distinct data protection schemes. The key AWS service that supports encryption is AWS KMS, which provides an easy-to-use key management service. In addition, focus on AWS Cloud HSM, which provides a hardware security module, and Amazon DynamoDB, which can help you to store encrypted content for your tokens. Data at rest represent any data that you persist for any duration. This includes block storage, object storage, databases, archives, and any other storage medium on which the data is persisted. Multiple AWS service supports encryption. Amazon S3 allows you to encrypt the content by selecting a KMS key on an object upload. Amazon Elastic Block Store allows you to choose master key to encrypt a block storage volume or Amazon machine images. Amazon RDS allows you to choose the encryption key for encrypting DB instance storage at rest, which includes backup and snapshots. Data in transit is any data that gets transmitted from one system to another. When planning for an encryption in transit approach, focus on using elastic load balancing, Amazon CloudFront, AWS Certificate Manager, which make it easy to generate, deploy and manage certificates using TLS encryption. By defining your data backup, replication and recovery approach, you help protecting your data against deletion or destruction. The key AWS service that supports data backup, replication and recovery is Amazon S3. Focus on areas like Amazon S3 cross-region replication, Amazon S3 lifecycle policies and versioning, and also Amazon EBS snapshot operations. This concludes the domain of specify secure application and architecture. This domain covers 26% of exam scope. Let's explore the domain 4, design cost optimized architectures, covering 10% of exam questions. The first objective under this domain is to determine how to design cost optimized compute. When provisioning systems on AWS, you need to understand the requirement of adjusting the service capacity. The key AWS service that supports an approximate provisioning approach is Amazon CloudWatch, which enables you to collect and track metrics. Right sizing is using the lowest cost resource that will meet the technical specification of a specific workload. The key AWS service that supports right sizing approach is Amazon CloudWatch and Amazon CloudWatch Logs, which allows you to set up monitoring so you can understand the utilization of your resources. In AWS, there are a number of different purchasing models that allow you to use EC2 instance in a most cost-effective way that suits your business needs. Focus on on-demand instance, spot instance, and reserve instances. When you architect your solutions, a best practice is to place computing resources closer to your users so that you can provide a lower latency. Focus on services like Route 53 and CloudFront. Amazon Route 53 latency-based routing lets you use your domain name system to route user requests to AWS region that will give your user the fastest response. CloudFront can be used to deliver your entire website, including dynamic, static, streaming, and interactive content using a global network of edge locations. AWS provides managed services for database such as Amazon RDS and Amazon DynamoDB, which reduce cost than hosting on your own. To reduce cost, you can also use serverless or application level services such as AWS Lambda, Amazon Simple Queue Service, Amazon SNS, and Amazon SCS. These various services remove the need for you to manage virtual servers for your code execution or queuing service or message delivery. Instead of using EC2 instances, you can use a serverless architecture or managed service so that you can reduce the cost. The second objective under this domain is to determine how to design cost-optimized storage. Choosing the right AWS storage service for your data means finding the closest match in terms of data availability, durability, and performance. Amazon offers three broad categories of storage services: object, block, and file storage. Each offering is designed to meet a different storage requirement, which gives you the flexibility to find the solution that works best for your storage needs. You can ask or answer few questions to figure out your storage requirements. How often and how quickly do you need to access your data? AWS offers storage options and pricing tiers for frequently accessed, less frequently accessed, and infrequently accessed data. Does your data requires high IOPS or throughput? AWS provides categories of storage that are optimized for performance and throughput. Understanding IOPS and throughput requirements will help you to provision the right amount of storage and avoid overpaying. How critical or durable is your data? Critical or regulated data needs to be retained at almost any expense and tend to be stored for a long time. How sensitive is your data? Highly sensitive data needs to be protected from accidental changes, not just data loss or corruption. Durability, cost, and security are equally important to consider. How large your data set? Knowing the total size of the data helps in estimating storage capacity and cost. How transient is your data? Transient data is short-lived and typically does not require high durability. How much are you prepared to pay to store your data? Setting a budget for data storage will inform your decisions about storage options. So based on this question, you can mainly focus on few AWS services: Simple Storage Service or S3, Elastic Block Store or EFS. Remember, storage optimization is the ongoing process, and choosing the most cost-effective and appropriate AWS storage option is really important. For object stores, you want to implement Amazon S3 lifecycle policies to automatically move the data to the cheaper storage tier as data is accessed less frequently. For Amazon EBS Block Store, monitor your storage usage and resize underutilized volumes. You also want to delete unattached volumes and stale EBS snapshot so that you are not paying for unused resources. You can streamline the process of storage optimization by setting up a monthly schedule for this task and taking advantage of powerful tools provided by AWS or third-party vendors to monitor the storage cost and access volume usage. This concludes the domain 4, Design Cost Optimized Architecture, covering 10% of exam scope. Now let's explore the last domain, domain 5, Define Operationally Excellent Architecture, covering 6% of exam question. Only one objective in this domain: choose design features in solution that enables operational excellence. The operational excellence includes the ability to run and monitor systems to deliver business value and continuously improve supporting process and procedures. Operational excellence in the cloud is composed of prepare, operate, and evolve. To prepare for the operation excellence, you have to understand your workload and their expected behaviors. Also, you need to consider operational priorities, design for operations and operation readiness. The key AWS service that supports defining your operational priorities is AWS Support. The key AWS service that supports designing for operation is CloudWatch, which allows you to monitor AWS cloud resources and applications. The key AWS service that supports operational readiness is AWS Lambda, which enables the definition of operational procedure as code and that can be triggered by events within your environment. Operational success is measured by outcome and metrics which you can define. To operate successfully, understanding operational health and responding to event really important. The key AWS service that help you to understand the operational health is again CloudWatch metrics and dashboards. You should anticipate operational events both planned and unplanned. Evolving is a continuous cycle of improvement over time. Implement frequent small incremental changes based on the lesson learned from your operational activities. The key AWS service that helps you to learn from experience is Amazon Elasticsearch, which allows you to analyze your log data to gain actionable insight quickly and securely. This concludes the domain 5, define operationally excellent architecture, covering 6% of exam scope.